So I think what's happened in the last couple of years is that the youth, has become the largest proportion of your movie-going audience. And thankfully, today's youth is extremely exposed. They're relatively, very, very well-read, very well-informed, very well-researched. They're very exposed to Western cinema, to art house cinema. There's also a proliferation of media, a lot of online media, a lot of digital media which is being consumed. So I think the audience has become increasingly receptive to new forms and formats of cinema suddenly. And this is not, and I think this is great because what's happened is there was a time, like you correctly mentioned, when if a comedy worked, suddenly 5 producers jumped onto the comedy bandwagon and dished out 5 comedies, right? That's not the case anymore. So today, if a comedy works 1 week, a thriller works in the 2nd week, a biopic works in the 3rd week. Which I think is, is symbolic of the fact that the audience has grown. The audience has become far more educated and receptive compared to what they were earlier. And I think they've also become very, very story conscious. So today when we interact with lay people who are not from our industry, we sort of, informally try and ask them, what are you watching? What do you like? What do you want to consume? Not surprisingly, now they all say, we want to watch a film whose trailer communicates the promise of a good story. So if the story at a thematic level is compelling enough for them, then they know they want to give it a shot. But if a movie ends up seeming mundane or seeming routine, seeming repetitive, seeming staid, I think that's not in vogue anymore. Unless it's driven by maybe 1 or 2 of the top stars, who are sort of, should I say, box office proof in a sense. But
for sure, yes. But we're waiting for appropriate. There's 2-3 things in the pipeline that we are trying to develop. But there's nothing in the absolute immediate, but we definitely want to.
So, just a word on the digital space. I think also because the space is so relatively new in India, I'm going to be honest and say that a lot of platforms that are in the market right now are also trying to find their bearings. A lot of the platforms right now are also trying to research their audience. They're also trying to find out who their audience is, what are their tastes. So right now, I think there's really not enough clarity of in terms of creativity, in terms of what every platform wants. I think everyone's sort of taking a bit of a blind stab to see exactly where their audience lies and what's getting them hits, and then chalking out their creative path accordingly. The only one thing that we hear all the time, from web platforms is give us something that's not for TV. That's a pretty wide brief. When you say give us something that's not for TV, essentially it means give us something which is not sanitized, or give us something which has sex and which has action and which has swear words and which is really, really cutting edge in the true sense of the phrase. So I think everyone is sort of dabbling with that. So if you see some of the stuff that's come out recently, it's pretty much all of that. But is that the only stuff that the web audience wants? I think it's something we're going to figure out in a year or 2, really. Also, I think we're pretty conscious of the fact that doing a web series with 10 episodes, approximately 30 minutes per episode, 300 minutes of content is almost equivalent to making 2.5 movies, right? So it's extremely time consuming. So it's a huge commitment, right? So we also want to be sure that we don't want to take it up, if it's at the expense of our movies. Right? So we'd rather focus on doing one big web show maybe in a year or every 18 months, which sort of justifies our time and effort, rather than just sort of, suddenly wiping out 3 films from our slate because everybody else is sort of jumping onto the web bandwagon. So we're in it, we're developing stuff, we're looking at the market closely. I think we're going with the flow.